You're watching Byline Wilmington on CBS 10 WILM. Here's your host, Don Ansell.
And welcome back. Dr. Earl Sheridan, who is a Wilmington City Councilman and also a former head of the local NAACP, is our guest, along with Dr. Leslie Hossfeld, who is a assistant professor of sociology at UNC Wilmington. The topic today, the race card post-Obama. Our housing patterns and even church attendance is segregated. And that old saying that I mentioned before we took the break, that the most segregated time in America is Sunday mornings. Your comments, Dr. Hossfeld?
Yes, I mean, we live still in very segregated lives as Americans. I think hasn't changed significantly. Urban settings may be different, but certainly I think, well, I don't know, maybe rural settings have more fluidity too. It's hard to tell. But yes, we go to white churches, black churches. We live in neighborhoods typically that are defined by race.
Yeah. You agree with that, Dr. Sheridan?
Yes, we do. I think a part of that, and Leslie touched on this earlier, part of that certainly as far as housing patterns are concerned have to do with economics and class aspects of things. I don't think that's, I mean, it's still also racial as well in some ways, but some of it has to do with economics. And I think churches, there are, I think, a growing number of integrated churches now, but still, you're right, that's still a pretty segregated aisle.
That famous line from the film, Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, comes to mind. When the Sidney Poitier character has a confrontation with his father about his plans to marry Katharine Hepburn and Spencer Tracy's daughter. And his father is telling him he can't do that. And Poitier says, "Dad, you see yourself as a black man, but I just see myself as a man." Is that still a part of our culture today? Does black America see themselves as black rather than just, or did the Obama election tend to remove some of that?
I don't think the Obama election in and of itself would change that. I think, again, a lot of that is generational. And as we were talking about earlier, I think probably some of the younger people are less likely to think of themselves in racial terms. But I think when I say older, I don't mean 60 and 70, but I mean older, maybe 40 on or whatever. Probably still, you know, that
those old images,
those racial aspects are still there.
Any comments, Leslie?
I'm not so sure. I mean, I've heard about that particular film being very controversial in as much as
in '67, yeah.
Yeah, that the director was really out of the loop in terms of the problems that certainly emerged and erupted in '68, and so when Poitier says that, the character, I don't know that that's a really true. It wasn't a marker. I mean, I think in the story he says, "I'm not a black. I see myself as just a man," but you know, race has been significant since the '60s on in terms of identifying oneself.
And actually, I think one can see oneself as a black man or whatever, and still that might not
feel out of the mainstream of
it. It might not be necessarily that's not necessarily a negative thing to see one. I mean, you appreciate and celebrate your race, but that doesn't mean that you
I think
feel differently about other people or
I think
that
Poitier
kind of
was
thing.
saying to his father in that you think yourself less. Is what I got from
that's the way I think it did.
Some political observers noted that the Obama campaign did not engage the traditional black political figures like Jesse Jackson and Al Sharpton as surrogates, and they seemed to keep them at some distance. Your comments?
Well, probably wisely so. in many ways, that leadership, and I'm not sure, and I think Earl could speak to this better because he studies African American politics and is probably our expert, but that leadership has been divisive and I'm not sure true leadership possibly. And
Dr. Sheridan?
Well, I think that it was wisely so. Jesse Jackson and Al Sharpton are seen, certainly in the white community, as kind of divisive figures. And I don't think that Obama would have done as well if he had made race a centerpiece of his campaign. And he ran a campaign that there's something that some political scientists call deracialization, that is running a campaign that does not emphasize race and where the candidate does not emphasize their blackness or emphasize black issues
transcending
and that kind of thing. And that's the kind of campaign that Obama ran, and that's why he was elected. If he had run a traditional campaign as Sharpton did or that Jackson did, he wouldn't be president now.
At one point, and we're running out of time and I have so much to talk about, at one point there was a lot made about a speech that candidate Obama made about fathers stepping up to the plate and taking responsibility for their children. And Bill Cosby made those same comments a few years ago and was pretty highly criticized, but Obama wasn't. Any comments about that?
well, I think
does
he
that
was
show that there's been
criticized
change?
too, but I don't know. It does. You're giggling. What?
Well, you're right. He was criticized too. Jesse Jackson had something to say about it. Jesse
sure
Jackson
did.
wanted to do surgery on him after
right.
that, and so I
Caught on
mic.
mic.
He got some criticism as well.
I just thought this was interesting. I don't follow celebrity lists, but I happen to see, we're almost out of time. I happen to see on TV 7 of the 10 top celebrity names. Obama was 1, Tom Hanks was 2, and not in this order. You had Will Smith, Morgan Freeman, Michael Jordan, Oprah Winfrey, Michelle Obama, Tiger Woods, and I think George Clooney snuck in there somewhere. Is there any, quickly, does that mean anything?
Yeah, I think that's a sign that we're changing. It doesn't mean that we have reached nirvana in race relations, but it's a sign we're changing.
Dr. Hossfeld?
I'm not sure I understand your question. His appeal is significant. Michelle's appeal is significant, and he's a beautiful speaker. And,
we're out of time.
You know.
I'm sorry.
That's fine.
Thank you both so much
Absolutely.
for joining us.
Thank you.
Be sure to look online if you'd like to see some past shows, and this one will also be on as well. WILM-TV.com. Click on Byline Wilmington. I'm Don Ansell. You have a great week.
On CBS 10 WILM. Join us every Sunday morning at 11 as we explore the issues that concern you.